Happy Wednesday, everybody. Yes, indeed. It is time for the Witches Movie. No, it is the Witches Movie Coven. Grab your goat, grab your Black Phillip, grab something to drink, grab your wand, and today, grab your tarot cards. Why? Because we are doing the 2024 movie tarot. Did you see it? Did you see it? We hope you did. We hope you did. Anyway, yes, it is Wednesday. I am Patti. I am one of your hosts, the one who doesn't talk very well in the morning. You probably know me from Ghost Adventures or from The Witching Hour, my regular podcast, or from Bathroom Walls Across America. But let me have my co-hosts introduce themselves, starting with Richard-Lael.
I am Richard-Lael. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I would be. With that, I am the Gentleman Psychic. I am here in New Orleans. I am, of course, from Ghost Adventures, and I teach University Magic, as well as all around being fabulous.
It is fabulous. Jason.
I'm Jason Mankey, a 9-time Llewellyn author, soon to be 10th. I just turned in my 10th book this week, High Priest, The Life of Raymond Buckland. I'm very excited to be done with it and for you to read it sometime next year.
Thank you. Courtney.
That's me. I'm Courtney Buckley, Ghost Bait on Scared and Alone. I am back, as you can see, from California and counting down the minutes until I can return because I loved it.
Thank you very much. And the beautiful Heather Greene.
Hi, I am Heather Greene. I am the author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, and it is a definitive guide to witches and witchcraft in American movies and television. I am also a journalist covering the occult, as well as an editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, working with authors when they turn in their 10th manuscript and beyond, like Jason, many of them. I also have an exciting news. The book Hocus Pocus book just came out, and I was looking for my copy, and it seems to have left my shelves. Probably a child has grabbed it, but it is a book about Hocus Pocus, and I was really excited to be part of that. So if I find it, I will share it some more, but check out my sites because that was a super exciting thing. So I'm also part of that project now.
Yeah,
all about Hocus Pocus.
Yeah. Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
Or turning into you their first Llewellyn book, which still took me 10 years.
Yes, and congratulations, you did turn it in. So first or 10th, I am with all of my authors all the way.
Kicking and screaming. It's very I don't know how Jason does 10. Anyway, back to the movie, because we are a movie coven. This week's movie, Tarot. 2024. I don't think any of us had seen it before this, right?
I did.
Yeah. Oh, you had? Okay. All right. So just in case, hopefully you've all watched it. Just in case somebody hasn't watched it, Richard-Lael, do you have an unbiased explanation and synopsis?
I have a very unbiased synopsis. How can I explain this film? Tarot 2024. It's a little like Final Destination. It's a little like Final Destination with tarot cards that somehow become sentient, and they all end up by being cursed, excepting they don't. In the story, a group of young friends have rented a house somewhere in the Catskill Mountains for the weekend. In the cellar, they decide, even though it's blocked off, they decide, oh, we're going to go look for beer, and we're going to go break into the cellar and find out if we can find some beer downstairs, because of course they are. And they break in, and instead of finding beer, they find something a lot more intoxicating. Tarot cards. So they sort of goad the heroine to read all of their tarot. And in doing so, she goes through, she does a zodiac tarot, which is a real thing. She does a zodiac tarot for each of them, telling all of their intricate ins and outs of how they meet their fate. And then all of those things do begin to happen. Only, of course, unlike Final Destination, where death was sort of always around the corner, this is a cursed Hungarian witch from the 18th century who decided that because someone hunted her and killed her daughter, she had to curse these cards forever. And then she comes back to haunt anyone and murder them, by the way, anyone who gets their cards read by these cards. It ends up that the first friend dies, the second friend dies, then the hero and the hero, the heroine, and the plucky sidekick end up by meeting a woman who had dealt with these cards back in 1969. She was the sole survivor. She had never had her cards read. She didn't read her cards. When she read her friends' cards, everyone died. The woman decided that she wanted to be the one to destroy these cards. They somehow, in spite of the fact that they broke into the cellar, they stole tarot cards. They did put them back. In spite of all that fact, the house was available, happenstance, movie magic, and nobody said anything about the broken door. So they go back to destroy the cards. The woman from 1969, she is laying the cards out, and then the haunted evil witch comes into the picture. For whatever reason, she stabs her with swords because there was no other way that it could have happened. Long story short, everyone dies. Oh, no, they don't. Hero, heroine, plucky, live to tell a day. The end. Roll credits. The end.
Now we completely understand the film and the plot line about. Okay, let's have a discussion. Tarot. I cannot call it tarot. I've called it tarot since I was 4 years old. What is it supposed to be called?
You can call it what you want. When we meet with our folks in meetings and they're from Italy, they call it tarot. So, I would say I call it tarot. I've always called it tarot. So, because it's a French word, so I see it as tarot, but
I call it a tarot deck. I'm opening up the tarot deck.
That's
Not
the tarot. That's
to
the
get your
Italian
tarot
word.
deck in their truck.
Tarot runs carrot.
Tomato.
Yeah. I don't know that anybody's gonna
like anything. It's potato. Okay. Anyway, there's that conversation. I just can't. Tarot sounds better. Okay. So who wants to talk on this lovely film first?
Heather does.
Oh
yeah. Oh, Heather, I forgot.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm packing. I'm unpacking. I'm insane. I know it's probably not in your book, right?
No, because my book was published before this movie came out. So I brought out my grimoire and pulled out the pages from it on this movie. I'm going to move these goats out of my way, though. They need to move to the side. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Clava moment here with 5 different things you need to know. First, we'll start with context, like I always like to do. And then we're going to say, oh, my horror, all the different horror things that happen, because this is a horror movie, if you didn't know. Number 3, notable figures. There's a few people I'd like you I'd like to mention. 4, we're going to talk a little bit about tarot. And then 5, we're going to talk about other tarot movies. Okay, so these are the kind of things. Now, it's a newer movie, so we don't have all the lore and things that happen over decades and decades. So I'm grasping at straws here with this one. So context, this movie came out this year. So we all know what happened this year. We all know what this year's like. So there's not a whole lot I can tell you about, other than the fact that why did they make this movie? It was actually made during COVID. So there was some COVID stuff going on with it. And also during COVID, tarot became really popular. I actually wrote an article for a religion news service, and I believe it was published in the Washington Post about how popular tarot has become with young people, specifically Gen Z, across religious backgrounds as well, not only for witches and Wiccans and pagans and all these folks. It's also becoming very popular with people who are not religious or people who are Christian. So tarot has had a revival in that sense. So it's not surprising you'd find a film like this, especially on the back of the popularity of witchcraft films that had been happening previously. So that's what it is. Now, what's more interesting and what's even more telling about that is that the actual movie only cost, and I have the figure somewhere in my papers here, about $8 million, but it made a buttload of money. And I don't have my paper right here. Hang on a second. It might be in my other pad, but it made
I think it was like $45 million.
Yeah, it was a huge amount of money. And so even though it was not popular with critics and people just panned it or bashed it.
No.
Here it is. Wait a minute. Hold on. I found my other paper. So even though it was actually tons of people went to it, which is what that difference tells us. It was a box office success, which means people went to see it, which means the subject of Tarot drew them to it, which proves the fact that the thing driving this was the popularity of Tarot in the first place, as well as horror to an extent, because horror is always popular. But to have horror and Tarot, super popular. So that's the context that we have here. Now let's talk about Oh My Horror. So the biggest criticism of this film is that it's canned horror. That means everything was predictable. That means we had everything from, oh my goodness, let's find out what's in the basement, to a gaggle of young people who are being attacked by a monster, a typical slasher. It read like a typical slasher where the monster picks people off, a la Halloween, a la Scream. There were so many horror tropes in this movie that it was, you could have checked them off and won a bingo easily, even down to the fact that the last person standing was a blonde white girl. So you have so many throughout there, which is ultimately fascinating. But what is even more interesting is that this is not just any type of slasher. When you have a slasher where the monster is a woman, it's typically a witch figure. And in this case, you have a witch figure. This is a slasher film that is a ghost witch film. And I talk about those in the 2000s. They were really popular in the early 2000s. After the Blair Witch Project happened, you had movies like The Conjurer, which we did here. We had The Woods. We had Ghost Game, Tooth Fairy, where young people are being attacked by a monster female, which is typically a witch. And another trope is the witch was a woman wronged in the past. Similar to a lot of these stories, similar to Hawthorne's classic story of the Scarecrow, where the witch attacks people. It's a witch that has been wronged by a man whose child has been killed, and then turns around to curse descendants. And so you have so many tropes written into this. It almost could write itself. We all could have seen what was coming if you study these type of films. So that is the horror. And I'm sure everybody could name right now, if we sat down, 10, 20 different tropes. They would, oh yeah, they did this. Oh yeah, they did this. It was classic. So number 3, characters, notable figures in the film. First, I want to point out Olwen, and I can't pronounce her name. She's the one who played the older woman. And another trope is to have an older Baba Yaga, older woman trying to help the younger women out. Very much a trope. She is also in the new film by M. Night Shyamalan, The Watchers. And she was also in the more recent version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So she's a character, an actress you might see otherwise. You also have Jacob Batalon, who played Paxton, who is the character at the end of the movie, who shows up. He's the plucky sidekick, I think is what you called him. He is also in a lot of the he's in the Spider-Man movies, the recent ones. And in some of, I believe he's in Endgame too, some of the Marvel movies. So you might recognize him from that. And then another character is not a cast member, but the advisor. So the question is, did you guys notice that some of the Tarot stuff seemed actually like someone knew something about Tarot? Despite the way it was presented, someone definitely knew. There was the right symbols, etc. There's some of the right conversations about it. That's because there was a Tarot reader as an advisor, Angie Banicki. She is an LA-based Tarot reader to the stars. So she is out there and she was on set. She was doing the work. So you did have a Tarot reader. You can go to her website. She has her own deck and everything for sale. So she was out there doing, helping out with that, which was obvious if you read it. Someone had to know something about Tarot on this set when they were writing it and filming it. So number 4, Tarot itself. So what is Tarot? Most of you guys here probably are readers or know. But I want to bring this up because the question is, does this tarot deck actually exist? What tarot deck was this? Because as a reader myself, I'm like, the first thing I do when I see a movie that has a deck in it, I go stare at the deck to find out what deck they're using, just because nerd, you know? So this one was not created by, this was created by the film people. Tarot began in the 15th century as we know it, sort of, you know, was it earlier? We're not sure. It was a game, but the tarot we're talking about today, the influence of the tarot we're talking about today was of course the 19th century, eventually the Rider-Waite, which began in 1900. First published Rider-Waite-Smith, let's be clear. And I like to be clear on that because I like to give credit to, and I have a lovely book. I like to give credit to Pamela Coleman Smith, the beautiful artist. This is a beautiful book. If you ever want to know everything about her, it is an incredible book about that artist. And anyway, most of the decks that we use today, most of them, not all of them, of course, there's Thoth and Marseille and a lot of other decks, are based on Rider-Waite-Smith. And this deck in the movie was based on the Rider-Waite-Smith. You can see by the cards they're showing and by the symbolism, but this deck was created for the film. And the artist was Maja Milovanic from Serbia. The film was filmed in Serbia. So they used a Serbian artist who created this deck. So you cannot buy this deck that I know of, as cool as you might think it is. So it was not, there is no deck like this. Finally, number 5, other movies named tarot or other movies about tarot. Now there's a ton of movies that use tarot in them. One of them is my favorite, and I hope one day we'll talk about it. It's called The Gift from 2000. It had Cate Blanchett in it, and we'll talk about that. Hopefully one day we'll do that film because it's a really nice psychic film. But interestingly enough, there's a lot of movies that are actually named tarot. In fact, one of them came out in 2024, Tarot in Korea. It was a horror anthology where people receive decks and then things go wrong in their life. That came out in 2024. And then there's Tarot movie in 2009 from the Philippines about tarot being used as a tool to overcome some cult or something. I'm not exactly sure what happened in that film. Then there's Tarot in 1986. Apparently it's something about people talking. I could not figure out what was going on at that one, and there was very little information, but it was a 1986 film. I believe it was German, and it was a bunch of artists talking. Tarot is involved some way. And then there's a Spanish film in 1973 called Tarot. And this one is about, it was also called The Game of Murder, about a young lady who marries a rich man and then finds out people are trying to kill her husband. And somehow Tarot is involved. And there's a lovely spread of Rider-Waite cards on the cover of it. So there's a lot of movies. These are called Tarot. There's a lot of movies that involve Tarot. And they always typically... 9 times out of 10, similar to Ouija boards, are demonized. Something is spooky with them. Something is demonic. Something is spiritual. Not spiritual. Something is, they're either a device of someone who's bad, or they actually conjure demons, devils, stuff like that. Similar to Ouija boards, making people afraid of them. And that is where I'm going to leave it, because that's what this movie does. Bum, bum, bum. I hand you it.
I think it's also interesting that this is an adaptation of something else.
You know what? I had that in my notes, Jason, but they give credit to the book, but there's a question of how much, and I didn't read the actual book.
Oh, I have no idea how much, and it's probably very little, but I still thought it was interesting that it was allegedly an adaptation.
Yeah, and it's an adaptation of a book called Horrorscape or Horoscope. I have it written down here, and the author, hang on a second, and look at all my notes. I'm so good at taking notes.
It's credited to Nicholas Adams, but that's a pseudonym. His real name is John Peel.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. And it's called Horoscopes or Horoscopes, something. I think that's what it is. It's Horoscopes, horror as HORROR scopes. And then the guy is like, that name is used for a lot of different authors from the publisher. And it's like some kind of dime store young adult novel. But yeah, some people were questioning whether it is credited in some places, but I'm not 100% sure how much is true.
I feel like they should have credited Final Destination because it was the exact same movie. Can I go? Because I can't keep my mouth closed any longer. This movie, I feel personally victimized by this movie because when I saw it in the theaters when it came out. I was on my first date with my boyfriend. I dragged him to see it. I was so excited because it looked so cool. Like, I just loved the concept of the like the tarot cards coming to life. I couldn't wait to see what they were going to do to make them into like monsters. Like, it was just, to me, it felt new and fresh and interesting. And then I sat through the movie and it was like watching Final Destination. It was literally the exact same movie, but with tarot cards, exactly like Richard-Lael said. And literally the only people that I know that liked this movie are people that did not see Final Destination, because I asked them. And so anyone, and they feel strongly that it was a great movie, and it's only because they didn't see Final Destination. And it makes me have a headache because it was terrible. Now, I will say I watched it again today to pour through for quotes, and visually, it's amazing. Like, visually, I love it. I do love the monsters. Like, again, visually, like I still do like that concept of them being the tarot monsters and how they portrayed that. But it was so horrifically acted. Every line, it was like their first line that they've ever read. Like, Imposter Black Phillip could have done better. And it was painful. Like, the plot was just not, it was just so ridiculous. So I feel like they had something really good and they missed it entirely. Like, this could have been so fantastic, I feel like, if they had done it differently and not made Final Destination : tarot.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. I'll go next. I was not crazy about it either, just because I do like horror movies, and I wasn't scared enough. It was everything you saw it coming. I mean, how many college student movies in the basement can you do? And you saw it all coming. And again, the acting or the directing, or the acting and the directing, along with the writing, acting, directing, and all that, I just kept going, I'm not supposed to be bored, I'm supposed to be scared. Also, I was hopeful for tarot, because you could tell somebody knew tarot or tarot, who was, talked about the cards, but then they didn't do anything with it. I mean, and then it fell flat. It fell flat. I had somebody on my show today who is a tarot reader and has their own tarot deck, and kind of said the same thing. And that's what I was looking at last night. They could have done so much more with these, even making us look bad, even doing it, but it just was used to. So I just wanted to be a lot more scared. It was pretty. I'm not good at knowing why I don't like things, like if it's the directing or the acting, or they just didn't match itself. Like the sidekick, he was cute, but he tried too hard. I think he tried too hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't buy into it. And I was only scared once. And it was towards the beginning. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be scared, but never, ever again. So I think, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. And I
think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't.
I think that it was so predictable. It was so predictable. She went down the list. She reads all of their tarot deck, all of their cards. And of course, they only use the major arcana, which fine, whatever, fine.
Whoa. But they only use the major arcana at the beginning, but then the old woman dies as the Seven of Swords.
Oh, yeah, she does.
So, but they don't barely show that. So, yeah.
And there was no need for her to actually die. There was no tension there with that. But everyone sort of went through predictably. And I'm telling you, if I were in a car and I had been foretold that I was going to die, and then some ghost hand writes "run" on the window, I'm not running.
Yeah, but you're not in a slasher movie.
Yeah, but in real life, you know what I don't do? I don't drive behind trucks on the highway that have logs in them.
Well, I mean that too, but at the same time, it was even like you said, Heather, the blonde girl at the end who lives, her romantic partner lives, the plucky sidekick lives, and they all should be dead, mostly because of their bad acting skills. But they should all be dead. Like why did the crone have to die? She didn't do anything. She didn't even read her own cards. She was reading the cards about the witch. So why did the girl who read the cards about the witch at the end, why did she get to live and the other one didn't? It makes no sense.
Most of it made no sense to me.
Also, what they tried to do at the end, like the roll credits and then showing the guy in the elevator when his friend showed up, that fell flat to me too. Like it was supposed to be like outtakes or the making of funniness.
You don't watch Marvel movies very much, do you?
Well, I know that they do, but this one just fell flat. I guess I don't watch enough Marvel movies.
I think it was supposed to be comedic with that character.
Well, I figured it was supposed to be comedic, but it
wasn't funny.
And whose car was he driving? Like all of the time they're in a Range Rover, and then at the end he's in some creepy 1970s Ford Pinto or something. Whose car was he driving? You go from a Range Rover to a Pinto? What?
I tuned out after about 4 minutes because it opened with all these kids drinking, right? And then they're like, I'm out of alcohol. I'm going to go back inside. And there's like, oh, we've only got one beer left. And they showed this giant trash can full of beer bottles and beer cans. And all those kids were completely and utterly sober after drinking all of that booze. Like, I couldn't buy that. I mean, you have to act a little tipsy or something. It just took me right out of the whole film. If you do not know that 48 bottles of beer are going to get 22-year-olds drunk, then you have no business directing a film.
I had that thought too. I was like, wait a second, they're too sober. They shouldn't be able to walk down those stairs with all that beer.
Right?
And they were too stacked up too nicely. I must say, like somebody had to work to get that stacked.
Yeah, they were in the trash can.
Yeah. And does anybody care about their Airbnb rating? I mean, you can't break down a door and then rent a house again, as Richard-Lael points out in the synopsis. You just can't do that. It makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all.
People probably hadn't even gotten in to clean it up yet. Didn't it all just happen pretty fast right after? The people probably hadn't even sent in their cleaning crew. I'll buy with that.
No, I think they would definitely send in a cleaning crew if you were renting it out on Airbnb, because otherwise they're sleeping on dirty. I was going to say something else, but dirty sheets.
Yeah.
I was going to say filled sheets, but I'm not going to say with what. But dirty sheets. No, they would definitely send in a cleaning crew.
Yeah.
I just figured it was like the next day or something. They just hadn't got there yet.
Guys, Tabitha Meadows would like to know what everyone's favorite card is in the deck.
Oh gosh, favorite card in the tarot deck?
Yeah,
or the one online, or the one in the movie in the deck. I think
it's just in the deck, so or in like tarot. I'll go first. I have mine. I'm so cliche. It's the death card. Because every time I've ever given a reading and it's come up for anyone and the look of shock on their face and when they're like, oh no, and it's like, that's not what it is necessarily, but, and I like things that other people are scared of for no reason. Like Ouija boards.
I have one too. They're not scary.
Mm-mm.
What we had we were briefly talking about the was it the death card we were talking about before the show, and the meaning of it that they gave in the movie may not be what we interpret it to be.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about that briefly.
Yeah.
You want to say what?
Oh,
do you not want to say what the quote is now?
Well, no, I have it as a quote because I have very few quotes. So I would like to
Save
save them for
We'll save it for a
quote
few
time.
more minutes.
Yeah.
I have a favorite card. I have several favorite cards. So I'll go. So,
Okay.
you know, I do love the devil. Yeah. Everyone gets that. I love the devil card. I love the fact that it is about adversity and overcoming challenges. But really, I love so many. I identify with the magician, affecting change. I identify with the emperor sometimes. I identify even with the Queen of Swords, because in my tarot deck that I'm creating, my Queen of Swords is Kalema. And in the story of Kalema, you see her with her multiple arms, and she's surrounded by corpses. And sometimes you have Lord Shiva at her feet. So she becomes, in my deck, the Queen of Swords, because the story has it that there was a demon that was attacking. And so all of the men had girded their loins and they went out to fight this demon. And every time that they would kill him, every drop of blood that would hit the earth, another demon would spring up in his stead. And so they started being overtaken. And Kalema, Queen of Swords, she unleashes her bosoms, she lets down her hair, and she runs into battle with a sword and a dish. And she will grab a demon, she'll slice his head, she'll catch the blood in a dish, and she licks it up with her long tongue. And she ends up by killing all of these demons that have surrounded. And then in the end, she's still enraged and she's looking for who she's going to kill, when Lord Shiva sees, okay, the battle is over, but if I approach her, she will kill me. So he does the Shavasana, the corpse pose at her feet. And then she looks down and she's still enraged. She's covered in blood. Her bosoms are bare. Her hair is wild. And she looks down and sees her husband, this image of peace, purity, love, and hope. And she realizes that the battle is over. And she says, okay, I can be a little bit silly. And she sticks her tongue out to be silly. And so I like that perspective for me. So I love the Queen of Swords.
Beautiful. Thank you. I don't have that many stories, but I can't pick one.
Oh.
Oh.
I like the Fool because I just always personally relate to the Fool. In my fun deck, I like the Lovers because they're pretty and they look like Barbie. In my deck, I like Strength because she's pretty and she's got a lion kissing her. I like the Horned one in my deck because they're having fun and they've got great butts. And I got the World, which is called the Universe, in my deck. This is why I have to pay so much for these decks, because they're so pretty and they're out of print. It's been done by Llewellyn, but not in a long time.
Oh my!
My favorite.
Come on, editors, let Llewellyn get to work.
So my favorite cards, it's hard to pick, and it really depends on the deck. I think, like Patti is talking about, I connect with the art so powerfully that it depends on the card and the art and what it's saying to me. But the deck I use now, there's one that has my heart special, and that's the Queen of Cups. If you can see that card right there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is, and this is particularly important for me because I use the tarot for daily reads, but I also use it to communicate with spirits. That's my main way I work with spirits. And so this particular card is one spirit that visits us on a regular basis. It happens to be my partner's mother. And so when she wants to communicate, we always get this card always comes up for me. So it symbolizes is her card as well. I'm sure she's probably going to be in the house now that I'm talking about this, but she comes and goes, but it's her as well as that maternal energy that I have connection to all of that through the lineage of moms and women who are moms and that kind of thing. So that's what it really is powerful for me. But I also love, I'm like you, Richard-Lael, with the queens. I'm really fond of the Queen of Pentacles, which I just love that. That one comes up a lot for me in my energy is the Queen of Pentacles right now, and also the Queen of Wands. So these are two cards that I just love in my deck for myself.
That's a beautiful deck. That's a
I
beautiful
love this artist, Ciolo Thompson. She's done several Oracle decks and several Tarot decks, and I love her art so much that I love every card. Like every card just speaks to me so powerfully. So this is called the Line Strider deck. So you can see that how gorgeous it is. It's so simple and I love it. But this one is probably like my 4th or 5th deck that I've used over the years. I use them, I get very attached, and then time you have to move on, you know. I used to use this deck, which is a beautiful wildwood. But eventually, you know, it's time to move to something different. So that's my deck now. But those are my cards.
Anybody else? Favorite cards?
I have I think 30 decks between Ari and I at the house. I love tarot decks, though I don't read anymore, but we do read in our coven very, very often. But I have a favorite card no matter the deck. I am a huge fan of the Hangman, which is definitely my favorite card. I don't think I interpret it properly because to me, since the noose is not around his neck, I've always found the Hangman to be very clever. Like he's gotten out of this situation. Also, I was told at a very young age as a witch that the song Gallows Pole by Led Zeppelin was a meditation on the Hangman. So my early days as a witch, I would just stare at the Hangman card, waiting for something extraordinary to happen, which never happened. But I still love the card. So there's that. Does anybody know
what deck is that?
This is
the Office?
Yes, this is the
Yes!
Tarot.
The which one?
Oh, I need that.
This is Kevin's.
And it's chilly.
Yeah. I also love the Lovers. I think that's because of Ari and I's relationship over the years, but I love the Lovers. I love that idea of like this pure love between two people. And of course, because everyone relates it to the Horn God, I love the Devil card, no matter the deck. Richard-Lael and I will probably always have that love of the Devil in common.
Beautiful.
Those are awesome answers.
Yes.
I feel like I learned so much about you guys.
Yeah. And these decks are all so pretty. That's what's kind of magical about tarot, that it's art. It's art and
it is. I can't
And we
stop.
live in
I love having the decks and I want to use them all and they all connect to them differently. And it's like you just want to collect them like you want to collect pieces of art, you know, almost. So powerful.
I have so many decks. I have a fun, just quick story for you guys. I have so many decks. And when I started reading, I was using an angel deck that I had found somewhere and connected with. And that deck, I would pull a card every day. And I would shuffle or whatever. And I'd pull a card. What do I need to know today? And when I was pregnant with Nathan, I was pregnant for 2 months and I didn't know. And every day for probably like 2 weeks, I'd shuffle, what do I need to know today? And the child card would go flying out of the deck across the room, literally every day for 2 weeks. And I was like, what? It was like inner child and this. And I was like, okay, I'll do something fun, I guess, like whatever. No, I was pregnant and I didn't know. But when I moved on from that deck, it took me 2 years to find another one. And I finally found it. And this is like phase after phase of like going to stores and touching them and whatever. I finally found one. And this, I use it's the John Holland Psychic Oracle deck. And I have seen and purchased so many tarot decks because they're beautiful and I love them. And I can't read a single one of them because my deck will not let me. And I'm telling you right now, it's the wildest thing. I don't know where my tarot deck is right now because it hides itself. And when I try to read another deck, it gets mad and then I can't find it. And then I'll find it eventually once I stop using the other deck. And then it'll appear literally somewhere obvious. But the caveat to that is I can read other people's decks. So that kind of coincides with the movie where it's the whole rule that you're not supposed to touch someone else's deck. If someone else gives me permission and asks me to read from their deck, I can read from that with no problem. But if I buy a deck that's pretty and beautiful and I love it and I want to learn to connect to it or whatever, I am not allowed. It's like a controlling, abusive relationship with my tarot cards.
I do get that though, honestly. My very first deck was vintage. I still have it. It's the Toth Tarot deck. That was my very first deck. My friend Charlie 20 years ago almost. I was living in San Francisco, and he said, "Oh, my friend gave me these cards, and I thought maybe you would want them." And I said, "Oh, thanks." He says, No. I'm not going to give them to you until you read my cards." And I said, "But I don't know what." He said, "Shut up and read my cards." And I went, but I shut up and read my cards. So I read his cards, and he went, "Wow, that was really, really good." So that the Thoth Tarot deck became my deck for a good decade. It was my soul deck. And then now I do mostly that. I use my Oracle deck, but I have a couple that are here that are really quite special. But I'm going to show you this one. It's from 1927.
Oh,
It's from a tobacco company, and I want to show you how lovely. Look how tiny.
Oh, look at those are tiny.
They're so little. They're really, really, really tiny, and they are really special. 1927, and it is an Oracle deck. So they have things like, I don't know if you can see, where's my camera? They have rats. So in this one, when the rats come up, it says it's the little things that nibble, 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 and you have to set them aside. You have to basically cut off their tails with a carving knife. Anyway, so they're all really quite special. 1927, these cards. That's the back.
Wow.
Amazing.
Go ahead.
No, I have a beautiful vintage Salvador Dali deck brought over from Paris, but I can't read it. I can't read it.
I have decks like that.
I have
too.
that same deck. I don't read it either.
I can't read it because I don't know. It's pretty, but I don't know what it means. It's so pretty.
I've got the H.R. Geiger deck that was based on his artwork, which is very much, it's called the Baphomet H.R. Geiger deck, and it's all based on his artwork. It's fantastic artwork. I can't read with that deck. It's only major arcana, and it's just beautiful because I love H.R. Geiger's work. But, I mean, the devil card is Baphomet H.R. Geiger's. I mean, it's gorgeous, but I can't read with that deck. It's not happening.
I can't read Oracle. I mean, I could do one card pulls with Oracle decks. I could pick a card, do something, or while I'm in the middle of pull something, but I can't do a spread on Oracle decks. I have to do it with tarot.
Me too.
I prefer my Oracle, but
Me too.
Patti, I showed you 1 year ago almost when you were here. I was at your table at the Hex Fest.
Yes.
And remember how I read your postcards?
Yes, beautifully.
And
Power Panty postcards.
Really, because
Spellcaster postcards.
it's just from what you assign it. So I took her postcards and I laid them out. This is what is on your mind. This is what
Scared and Alone postcard.
There was your Willow one. This is what was in your heart. This is your passion. It was I can't remember the full thing, but you can read if you assign it meaning from your head, you can read any card.
Right. And I tell people that all the time now because I lay out all these, dozen postcards and I'm like, take all of them. You could do a reading. My friend Richard-Lael, he's very accurate. Willow and Power Panties and Scared and Alone postcards.
Which proves that it's really about the connection to the piece of art. And that's the way art works with our psyches. Art works with our spirituality. And you could look at paintings, whatever it is, art works in a very specific way that triggers, psychism, it triggers emotion, it triggers intellect, it triggers so many things. That's why art needs to always be part of our lives. That's my soapbox. But that's why art is so important. And when, I'll talk to people and say, what deck should I choose? You need to look at the art, find the art that works. And if it's an Oracle deck, great. If it's a tarot deck, great. I like tarot decks better. But people love Oracle decks. It just really depends. If you don't connect with that art, you're not going to open to spirit and be able to read it. So, I can't read with the H.R. Geiger deck. I love it, but it's so intellectual for me that I cannot use it to read. So, just the way it is. It's the art is everything.
I think too, a lot of us grew up on Rider-Waite-Smith, right? So if it doesn't follow that pattern, we often get really confused with the cards. In our coven, I get so many tarot decks, and when we're reading as a group, I'm like, let's try this one. We haven't used it before. And then my wife will look at it and she'll be like, what the hell is this? Because they've changed all of the suites, and we don't know what the meanings are without looking through a book, and that's no fun. It's no fun. That's a beautiful Rider-Waite Smith.
Yeah, this is a newer one that has no borders. It's called the Radiant Wise Spirit, and Rider comes in many different forms, but this is a really pretty one, very vibrant. This is not my original Rider-Waite. That one got that one's upstairs. I won't talk about what happened to that one. It got commandeered by somebody upstairs, but yeah, most people, and I know that a lot of tarot readers will tell people start on Rider-Waite, and like the tarot deck in the movie is a Rider-Waite base, and most of the decks that Llewellyn publishes, most of the decks you find in the market are tarot decks, not oracle decks, are Rider-Waite. So if you start with Rider-Waite, you get that basis. That's the way most of us started. So I think we have a question about Zodiac.
Robert asked about how many ways there is to use a tarot deck. As many ways as there are people.
Yeah.
Their standard decks are the 7, the cross over. I do a pyramid all the time. I put 5 across and 4, and I have a whole way to read how I'm doing it. But there's a million ways, or make up your own. Most decks come with a little bit of direction, though, of whoever invented that deck, either probably a classic one or not, or a 3-card pull or the 12. But
I always begin with a 17-card full spread.
Wow.
It's a big one. And I use, it's a similar deck from the one I showed you. They were originally 19th century, but they are from about 1969. And these have little poems on them. Like we have this one, and it says, "My eyes are old." It says, "A road in the open reveals the best way to avoid chagrin and dispel dismay. If dark clouds surround and the road is dim, beware of the ground sinking from within." So they all have these little poems. So in the 17 cards, I actually took the Aleister Crowley Thoth, because that was where I got my start. It was my very first deck. So he had where you do 3 in the middle, 6 across the top, 6 across the bottom. And then I add to it. I do one that is either a challenge or support, and one that crowns, one that is sort of your overarching theme. So I do it. I always start with 17. Why? Just because.
Wow. And I much like in my hexing, I make the best of it. I have no set way. I usually will shuffle to clear energy from before and put my energy in it and my intent in it, and then I hand it to the person to also shuffle. And if any cards fall out while they're doing that, or I'm doing that, I take them and put them to the side, and then I will just shuffle as cards launch themselves out of the deck, and I pull. That's how I pull it. And then it could be 3 cards, it could be 20 cards, it's whatever it needs to be known. And I think that's why I like using an oracle deck, because it frees me up easier for interpretation. So it has one word on it, and has a beautiful picture, and so I go by that one word and I kind of interpret the art a little bit, and I put them into, as I'm looking at them, I pay attention to what order they came out in. But if it's not fitting that, I can move. I kind of get a sense of like what goes with what, and I move them around, and then I'm building little situations and whatever based on the person. And I actually do like reading from the book, because I feel like I don't read the entire thing from the book, but especially when it's someone that I know, because I don't do this professionally and I just do it off the hand. I don't want anybody to ever feel like I'm just telling them something because I know that about them. So I do like to read from the book so that it kind of validates what it is that I'm saying. And sometimes there's a little buzzword in there and I'll get a little like goosebump tickle that I know has something to do with whatever the reading is about that the artist intended. And then getting that little goosebump tickle will send me down the path of interpreting it the right way. So it's literally just everybody does it different.
Completely different. But good question, Robert. All right. Well, I guess now we've talked about everything except this darn movie. But
as we should.
I think that was the wise choice tonight.
Do we have any quotes from this darn movie?
Oh God, unfortunately.
I can't wait for the Mankey Minute.
Listen, everyone here, everyone in the chat, everyone buckle up, and you guys better appreciate this because I watched this movie again just to get these quotes for you, and there's not a lot. So, they're all about the zodiac. So the funny guy goes, I mean, I'm a Taurus, right? Isn't being a dick like my thing? And then she asks him, she's trying to log into his computer. What's your password? Password. Okay. And then, how do you wait out a curse, Paxton? I don't know. It's my first time being cursed, so get off my back about it. And then the quote that we were talking about was, the death card can mean the end of something or the start of something new. In this case, it just meant death, which we can talk about. To me, it's like when I read the death card, it's literally like the end of one chapter, the beginning of another. So that's how I interpret it. But
sometimes it actually can be death. I've had that happen. Anyway,
of course, I haven't read it like that ever. I know that it can be, but like my favorite thing is the look on people's faces when it comes out, because that's immediately what they think it means, and it's like, slow your roll, just calm down, let me read it. Fate doesn't have to be a curse. We can choose to let go. I thought that was oddly poignant for a movie like this. And then my ultimate favorite quote the whole time was the most dramatic quote in the entire movie. The main girl, who is terrible, she was like, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in. And then there's a 47-minute dramatic pause. And then she goes, fate. Yeah. Those are my quotes.
Thank you. Those are beautiful quotes. Jason, do we have
yeah, we do.
a moment?
This is your favorite kind to do because you can make fun of this movie without getting hexed.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like I wasn't inspired today, but we'll see. All right.
That's
Let me get a big announcer voice. You've screamed in terror at haunted dolls, especially Courtney. You've screamed because of the deadly dark secrets of the Ouija board. You've averted your eyes because the Sanderson sisters have taught us that our books of shadows have eyes. And you fled the movie theater shrieking into the night over the demonic power of seances. But now prepare yourself for the most sinister evil force of all, tarot cards. And these aren't just any deck of tarot cards either. These are tarot cards somehow connected to the signs of the zodiac and infused with the power of astrology, somehow making them even more evil and powerful. Maniacal laugh, maniacal laugh. Yes, Hollywood has sought to turn everything related to the occult into a force for wickedness and murder the last few years. And now with very little left, they've chosen to demonize tarot cards. I'm really looking forward to the sequel to this one, Oracle Deck. If you want to live, never unlock the power of art.
Oracle.
Doesn't sound like
scary. When partying with friends at a rental house and you run out of alcohol, there's only one thing to do: break into that house's basement. Your Airbnb rating be damned. And once you've determined that a basement is creepy, the best thing to do is just stay down there and continue to poke around. Why is it that the only people who seem to have never seen a horror movie are the people in a horror movie? And don't college kids have sex anymore? Everyone should have just hooked up. Then they'd all be alive. But no, everyone had to get deadly tarot card readings mixed with astrology. Get lost in a movie that is a series of cliche. House in the Woods, check. Disbelieving law enforcement, check. Weird old lady who has answers, check and check. Most popular girl spared at the end, check. Something stupid said at the end to possibly set up a sequel, check. And would you believe that the evil witch who kills most of the young people in this movie had been wronged by a powerful person and then decided that the best way to get revenge upon that person in perpetuity is to kill random people who stumble upon one of her items? I feel like we've been there before, and that the drive to get there has been much, much better in other films. Also, I'd love to tell you the names of the young adult ensemble in front of me. but I only recognize Ned Leeds from the newest Spider-Man movies. And while his name is something else in the film, he's still clearly Ned to me. That's it, the only memorable character. There's also an old who might have been to Woodstock, or is it London? I don't know, and I don't care. Even the bad witch ghost has a lame name. She's just the astrologer. Ooh, be scared of astrology too. This tarot movie really puts the horror in horoscope and had me wishing for the death card.
Yay! The amount of t-shirts that should come out of that. You have me wishing for the death card. And then whatever the line was about like the sinister new evil tarot cards.
Oracle deck.
Tarot cards. I am looking forward to Oracle deck. Yeah. Well,
The angel cards.
Ooh. That is funny. I must say, I got a new deck of cards today that has astrology on them. They're really pretty. It's called the Mystic Arts Tarot. I had them on my show today. It is really pretty, and it has astrology, Kabbalah, and
Oh, that's nice. I got a new one. This is an Oracle deck. Oracle deck lovers. This one just came to me a couple months ago, and I haven't used it yet. It's also by the same as the Wildwood Tarot, by Mark Ryan and John Matthews, if you guys know them. But it looks really pretty if you like this type of art. So I'm really I don't read Oracle decks normally, but it looks quite lovely and very traditional in its design. So I'm kind of excited. I love their other deck, Red Great. So I look forward to that one.
It's the golden age of tarot and oracle decks, though. So many to choose from, and so many different ways to get them published. It's really great.
It is.
all right.
It is
We
true.
have something we have to do before it gets so close to the end. We have to rate this movie. We have to rate this beautiful movie. Tarot. Correct.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nobody did an up. Is this the first time we've ever had no up at all from anybody?
Yeah.
Does it really matter which deck is used for the reading? Oh, well, Robert, I mean, if you read by the book, it wouldn't matter. A king of this means that, a major arcana, but it really does, because it takes you to a different place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what the card says, it's the placement and what develops from it. So the tarot deck really is important. So anybody wands up? One's neutral, one's neutral.
I'm only neutral because
Hey, Fish.
of the monsters. Because I thought visually it was pretty cool. But
It looked
everything
good.
else was one side.
It looked good, but the rest of it was poop.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was pretty, and I don't mind tropes and things, but I just wanted to be more scared. So it just floats. So do we not have does somebody like it? Can somebody like it? It made a lot of movies.
I will say my friend Barbara, friend of Scared and Alone, the owner of the John Proctor House, she said she was going to come on here and argue with us because she loved it.
See, she should have came on and argued with us. Way too much. We shouldn't agree this much ever.
Well, I never said my opinion, honestly, and we're only 2 minutes out, and I didn't hate this film as much as you guys did. I thought it was, like I did. I was halfway. I'm like, I was entertained on a very baseline level. I'm like, okay, I'd rather watch this than some of the other movies that we've watched. That really, what was that?
You'd rather watch this than the Killing
Tree. The Killing Tree is on its own level.
How dare you?
We're going to compare the Killing Tree, Richard-Lael. We're not going. See, I wasn't even going to go there.
Cursing.
It hurts my soul to want to curse Richard-Lael, but here it is.
Sometimes a movie needs to be really bad, and then it becomes good. This was not enough to be bad enough.
No, see, that's exactly right, Jason. I agree with you. It was not bad enough to become as hokey and like I have to watch this kind of whenever. This is a movie that will be forgotten, which is the absolute worst possible thing to say about a movie.
I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
Exactly my point. So
Taya said should have been a musical, and I agree. I would have, if we could have sang songs about the Hanged Man and the Fool, I would have been on board with that.
Oh, I thought we were talking about The Killing Tree should have been a musical.
the Killing Tree is perfect as it is.
Okay.
So no criticism can come near that. Obviously.
So we only have a minute, but I thought the premise was great, and I gave it a medium because I think there was something there that just it wasn't bad enough to become a Killing Tree, but it wasn't good enough to become the
I'm looking forward to the
Conjuring.
sequel to the sequel. Tea Leaves. Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. I think there's
Very
opportunity
poisonous.
there. There is opportunity here. Okay.
Dowsing rods. The pendulum.
Dowsing rods.
I think there's opportunity.
Dominoes.
Whole series. All right, we've gone long. What are we watching next week? What is
Anyo in honor of Courtney's birthday.
And to mix it up with tarot cards, I have 2 tattoos planned. One is a death card with all the spooky things I love it on it, and one is the lovers with Ponyo people on it. And I'll tell you about it next week when we talk about it.
okay?
Suspense.
All right. Does anybody have anything to say? Anybody going to be in Michigan this weekend? Come see me at Michigan Paracon. Come to the UK with me next month. Anybody else got stuff they want to come seeing up the next week or two?
Next week or two.
Nah.
Like us, follow us, tell your friends, come back to the coven next week. Get yourself a Black Phillip or a Baphomet if you don't have one. Get yourself something because they're real cuddly. They're real cuddly. And 3, 2, 1. Here we go.